Growing a business is kind of tricky right now. Supply chains are squeezed, tariffs and trade policies are dynamic, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. You need clarity to come out on top. Without it, you risk falling behind. If only you could hop in the DeLorean and see the future, right? Thankfully, there's NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite has real-time forecasting to help you move ahead with confidence. This is your AI-powered business management suite and the #1 cloud ERP. Trusted by over 42,000 businesses, NetSuite brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. And with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. You spent months building towards launch day, but when the clock hits 0, your site crashes. Bots swarm, and loyal fans rage on Reddit. That's not good. Fanfare was built to stop that. Fanfare is the drop platform made for high-pressure moments, stampede-proof infrastructure, verified waitlists, and bot filters that actually work. Instead of refunds and rage, you get retention and revenue. And that sounds great to me. Your next launch shouldn't be a gamble. Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook and learn how to bulletproof your drop at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, that's fanfare.io/playbook. Hey, I get it. You've worked really hard to build up your business and it's doing great. So great that you need help now. The most important thing for your business is to hire the right people to support it. So how can you find amazing candidates quickly? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. And with Sponsored Jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, Sponsored Jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. And it's one of the largest databases of job seekers, too, giving business owners access to a wide range of candidates. And one of the things I love most about Indeed is the job alerts feature. I get notified when new candidates apply. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/smartpassive. Just go to Indeed.com/smartpassive right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/smartpassive. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need.
The antidote to impulsiveness is forethought. That's really the summary of my 10 years of research, that if you wake up every morning and your cell phone is right there, you're going to pick it up before you even say hello to your loved one. If you leave these type of decisions to the last minute, you will fail. But if you plan ahead, there is no distraction we can't overcome. Paulo Coelho said, a mistake repeated more than once is a decision. So how long are we going to complain about, social media, all these things are so distracting, before we do something about it? So a distracted person keeps getting distracted. They are choosing to be distracted because they keep making the same mistakes.
One of my favorite authors as of late is Nir Eyal, E-Y-A-L. And he has written a couple books that have gone pretty wild out there. Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products, and Indistractable, How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life. And we're going to talk more on the latter today in a roundtable with myself, our CEO, Matt Gartland, and Nir, of course, himself. And we also get a glimpse into some of the other research and findings that he is doing with relation to a new book that he's working on, which is really fascinating. But today we do talk about things like habits and willpower, following through, how to make sure that you are being held accountable. What does that actually mean? And actually how to get to that next level in your business and in your life through the world that we live in today. And what I love about the way Nir approaches his work is it's always sort of science and research-based, and he explains it really easily. I mean, there's a lot of authors out there who do science-based findings for things that involve self-improvement, but Nir, I find, breaks it down easier than anybody else. And so enjoy this conversation between Matt, myself, and Nir, and let's talk about leveling up in life and in business. Here we go. Cheers.
You're listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, a proud member of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network, a show that's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host, It took him nearly 40 years to finally get over the fact he'll never be taller than 6 feet. Pat Flynn.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the pod. Another fun roundtable episode, as always, with my partner in crime, Pat. And this time around, a very special guest. We are thrilled to have Eyal with us. Nir, how's it going? Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're thrilled to reconnect. There's so many great things that you've been doing over the years that are, I think, as relevant and prescient as ever. So really just to kind of jump in, and it's a fun connection point back to even our relationship where it started, is your book, Indistractable. It came out about 5 years ago, which was crazy when I look back at that. And more than ever these days, I feel more pulled than ever. There's more signals, there's more noise, there's more fractals on the internet where I could be putting my time and attention. So I'd love to kind of even hear your perspective, being really like you wrote literally the book on it. Like, do you feel like distraction in the universe that we're living in, especially with online media, has it improved in the 5 years since the book has been out, or has it gotten even worse?
For sure, the world is becoming a more distracting place. And why does that happen? Because it is the result of abundance. This is the first time in human history that we have so much, right? If you are fortunate enough to be living in the industrialized world, you're much more likely to die based on a disease of excess like diabetes than you are starvation, right? And that's the first time in human history that's been the case. For 200,000 years, humans have been plagued by drought and starvation. And this is the first time that we actually die of these diseases of excess in any significant number. So we're seeing something very similar when it comes to information abundance, that the price of progress, again, the price of all this progress, of having all these good things in the world, is that now we have to learn how to deal with them. So yeah, it's a wonderful thing that for the first time in 200,000 years of human history, we don't have to be constantly bored. If you look at literature, if you look at the historical record, boredom was a huge problem for people for 200,000 years. This is the first time in history where we have this amazing boredom alleviation device in our pockets at any time of day or night. And that's pretty great. That's wonderful that we can learn a new language with Duolingo, that we can use an app to read a book. We can watch videos about pretty much anything we'd like to learn about. But the price of all that progress is that we have to learn how to become indistractable. So I really think that there's a bifurcation, that there's people in the world who will allow their time and their attention to be controlled by others, essentially have their lives controlled by others, and people who stand up and say, no, I will control my time and attention. I will control my life because I'm indistractable. So the world is definitely becoming a more distracting place, but that doesn't mean we're powerless.
So then how do we think about trying to reclaim some of that power, or at least put the guardrails? So much of that wisdom is in the book. I just wonder, in 5 years, how have even your own applications of that, right? In your own career, with your own business, with your own family, we all here have some kids. So I'm curious, like, how you've even adapted and evolved along the same guidelines.
Absolutely. So this is what the book is all about. And it took me 5 years to write Indistractable because I kept getting distracted. And so it wasn't until I learned these tactics for myself that I could put them to use. So today I'm 46 years old. I'm in the best physical shape of my life. I have not quite a 6-pack, maybe like a 4.5 pack, even though I used to be clinically obese. It goes to show I'm not very athletic at all. I've never been athletic. But I work out when I say I will. I eat right because I say I will. I have a better relationship with my family than ever before because I'm fully present with them. I'm not on my phone. I'm not distracted. I'm fully present with the people I love. And so I have a better relationship with my wife and my daughter than ever before. And I'm more productive at work than ever before because instead of diddling around with email and Slack channels and whatever other junk, I do the work that I say I'm going to do. And so this is the skill of the century because there is no facet of your life, your mental health, your physical health, your professional well-being, all of this stuff requires you to be able to focus your attention. If you can't focus your attention long enough to read a book or to, take an online course or to sit still long enough with your family over dinner without checking your device, you got a problem. And we got to figure out how to fix this problem. And listen, I was patient zero. I wrote this book for me more than anyone else because when I read everyone else's take on the subject, it was stupid stuff like, well, just tell your boss no, right? Just say no more. That's stupid advice. Who's going to, the only people who give that kind of advice are tenured professors who can't get fired. If you tell your boss no, you're going to get laid off. That's a stupid thing to do. Or here's a better piece of advice. Stop using social media. Stop checking email. thanks, stupid. Like, I'll get fired. I won't have a career if I stop using these technologies. So I didn't feel it was productive. It certainly wasn't for me to tell people stop using technology. Technology is the problem. Because, when I started studying this topic well over like 10 years ago now, one of the first things I learned was that distraction has always been part of the human equation. Plato, the Greek philosopher 2,500 years ago, was complaining about how distracting the world is. So the problem can't be caused by our technologies. It's not technology's fault. We love to blame the technologies. It's very convenient, right? It's Mark Zuckerberg's fault. I'm not doing it. But of course, what I learned when I study the psychology of distraction is that the vast majority of distractions are not external triggers. External triggers are the pings, the dings, the rings. That's where everybody starts. They think they know how to manage distraction. Turn off your phone, grayscale your screen, turn off notifications. That stuff doesn't work because only 10% of distractions come from your phone. You know where the other 90% of distractions come from? 90%? In here, right? They start within us. They're not external triggers. They're internal triggers. So the big aha moment for me was realizing, just digging into the basic research, starting from first principles around what is distraction. Distraction is an emotion regulation problem. It's an impulse control issue. Your brain probably is not broken. You don't need any pills. What you need is skills. These are skills that we don't learn. I didn't learn them in school. We don't teach our kids. How do you focus? How do you make sure that you can become indistractable? It starts with, there are 4 big steps. So I can walk through those in a minute. But the first and most important first step is to master the internal triggers: boredom, loneliness, fatigue, uncertainty, anxiety. If you don't understand the root cause of why you are escaping reality with distraction, you're always going to get distracted by something, whether it's too much news, too much booze, too much football, too much Facebook. You're going to find distraction because you're always escaping a feeling. So if you don't have tools to deal with the feeling, none of that other stuff is going to work.
Yeah, I think it's powerful to continue to even reflect on history as then a barometer of the future, right? I mean, so many of these things that truly can be, I guess, synthesized into constants, right? Some things are truly timeless. And then just trying to acclimate ourselves as best we can to current state realities, but know that, yeah, some things there's just really common denominators for. It was an appreciation I had for the book when we were working on it together. And I don't think I completed that thought in the setup, but it was one of the last book projects that I did before Pat and I joined forces and created SPI Media, was working on Indistractable. One of the big takeaways, though, of that time working together, and then just even myself trying to continually work on myself in the same capacity, right? To try to do the internal work and then set up external environments, my office, other things that play a factor, was how much of this was like on me personally, right? And there's still that sense of self-responsibility, of course, to process this information, to do the internal work and to do that. But what I've also found, and would love, Pat, you to even chime in on this as well, is surrounding myself with other people that kind of believe and try to operate in the same way, sort of like an internal, almost small community effect, where like, if I can have, my team or my partners also like talk about these concepts, right? And maybe together in our sort of safe spaces, try to help each other, has helped me in my own ability to reduce my susceptibility to distractions. I'm curious if like more of a network effect has played into, Pat, your lived reality with distractions, and Nir, if it even remotely begins to kind of overlap with some of the research that you've uncovered on the subject.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. And sometimes when I'm in my own work or I'm even being distracted, I don't even notice it at times because it's almost automatic in many cases. And when there are other people who I've given agency to catch me or, help me stay on track, it's always helped out. And this is where my mastermind groups come into play. This is where my wife comes into play. This is where you, Matt, have come into play several times as well. It's like, hey, we got something to focus on. Let's stay on the path. And, some people need outside help more than others, but it's been vital. Absolutely. The hard thing is, and the last time you were on this show, I think it was on 7 years ago. And that was after your book Hooked, which plays directly with this because like these tools and social media, like they're not built to help us through these problems we're talking about right now. I mean, they're actually working against us, which is why I love that you followed this up with your book, and they're not going to stop trying to hook us. So for me, it is a willpower and discipline thing more than anything. And that is something that if you don't consciously think about it, these things are going to control you. You're not going to have control over it. And it's really scary what can happen.
Yeah, I'd love to build on some of that. So one of the things, the concept that I had to change my mind about was this concept of willpower. In fact, we're starting to realize, and much of the psychology community has already come around to believing that willpower is a myth, actually. It's not a concept that's actually a helpful psychological designation. In fact, we used to have this belief. We called it ego depletion in the psychology community. Ego depletion is this idea that you run out of willpower, just like battery charge on your phone, that it becomes something that you run out of. And there were some studies done by one very prominent professor that showed that, in fact, this was true, that people, when they were taxed with difficult tasks, they would run out of willpower. They would, use up the gas in their gas tank, so to speak. And so this got a lot of popular press. And then it turned out that, as we do in the social sciences, when a study sounds fishy, when a concept sounds too good to be true, what do? We replicate the study. We run it again. And as far as we know now, a decade off from when these studies were published, it turns out that this idea of ego depletion, that we run out of willpower like gas in a gas tank, as far as we can tell, the studies don't replicate. It doesn't exist. It's not real. Except, interestingly enough, in one group of people. There is one group of people out there who really do experience ego depletion. They really do run out of willpower like gas in a gas tank. Who are those people? People who believe that willpower is a limited resource. That's it. It's the only people that had this effect. So this is super important, because when we hear things in the media all the time about how technology is addictive, how it's hijacking our brains, how we're powerless to resist it, in fact, what we're doing is reinforcing exactly what the tech companies want. It's called learned helplessness. The media companies want you to believe there's nothing you can do. Right? You're powerless, because what do people do when they believe they're powerless? Nothing. So it's not me. It's not my parenting style. Oh, it's my kids are on TikTok. They're playing Fortnite. That's addicting them, right? The word addiction comes from the Latin slave, addictio. It's a clinical term. An addiction is not, ooh, I like it a lot. An addiction is a pathology. But we toss this term around as if we're all enslaved. And as Henry Ford beautifully said, whether you believe you can or you cannot, you're right. So one of the things I'm really fighting out there is this perception that we're powerless, that we're slaves, because that is the number one best way to give these media companies what they want, is to believe there's nothing you can do about it. So I think a much healthier approach is to see, you know what, media, all forms of media, whether it's the news, whether it's movies, whether it's social media, all form of media is fine. It's great, as long as you use it with intent. I think the big problem is that people, they use these tools to escape a feeling. And this is not something we talk about. We talk about willpower and grit and resilience. We don't talk about how to manage uncomfortable emotions. And if we can begin to identify those emotions and figure out, wait a minute, when I'm bored, I tend to check email because email will tell me what to do. When I'm lonely, I check social media. When I'm uncertain, I Google something. When you can begin to identify the internal trigger, the feeling, with the action, then you can start taking steps to break that spontaneous stimulus and response relationship. But if we just go about our days thinking, oh, it's something broken about my brain, I probably have undiagnosed this, that, or the other, I probably need pills for this because there's nothing I can do, then we actually do become powerless. So that I think is a very important aspect.
And then confirmation bias kicks in and you look for signs that that's true, which just furthers the spiral.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. I wonder how, again, with a certain sort of accountability mechanism, and this is coming from a layman, I don't have social science or psychology to back up maybe a theory, but I can physically feel more focused and in more control. Maybe that's just my brain doing things. But when I am in a small group, or I can get help from my mastermind, right? Or Pat and I are having a private conversation and we're able to really kind of refocus ourselves on what's important and kind of check in on priorities. That to me feels like it is helping to fade away some of the distractions or the impulse pulls that sometimes are just kind of there. It almost feels like they're in the ether. So is there any science or truth or backing to,
absolutely,
again, the power of accountability in groups like that to try to assuage some of these impulses?
Yeah. So this is called a pre-commitment device, which is just a fancy way of saying you're going to plan out what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. And this is very well studied. I mean, there's thousands of peer-reviewed studies about exactly this mechanism that you're describing. There are a few different kinds of pre-commitments, or you can think of them as a pact, We have an identity pact where we have some kind of self-image. So that's why the book is called Indistractable. I made up that word. It's meant to sound like indestructible. It's who you are. It's an identity. This, by the way, comes out of the psychology of religion. When someone calls themselves a devout Muslim, they don't say, oh, I wonder if I'm going to have a gin and tonic with my dinner. No, devout Muslims don't drink alcohol. It's who they are. When someone says, I'm a vegetarian or a vegan, they don't say, oh, I wonder if I'm going to have a bacon sandwich for breakfast. No, because that's who they are. It's their identity. So one very important pact is to have a new identity, to call yourself indistractable. It is who you are. Because remember, behavior change always necessitates identity change. If you want to get in shape, you have to call yourself an athlete. If you want to learn a new skill, think of yourself as an academic, right? Thinking of yourself as a new identity is incredibly powerful as a tool. So that's one, identity pact. We also have a price pact where we have some kind of monetary disincentive. So the way I got in shape and stopped being clinically obese and today I'm in the best shape of my life is because I have this price pact that every morning I walk into my closet and I see this calendar on the wall. And taped to the calendar is a crisp $100 bill. And every day, this is called the burn or burn technique. Every day I look at that $100 bill and I have a choice to make. I can either burn some calories, right? Take a run, go for a swim, do some push-ups on the spot, some kind of physical activity. It's a rule I made for myself. Or I have to physically light that $100 bill on fire. So burn some calories or burn the money. So I've entered into this price pact with myself to do what I say I'm going to do. Right? To finish this book, Indistractable, I made a bet with my buddy Mark. I said, Mark, I'm going to finish this manuscript or I'm going to pay you $10,000. Works like a charm. It's one of the most effective techniques you can use. So the only problem with these pacts, there's a couple other pacts. One of them is the social pact you described earlier. The only problem is these techniques come last. Okay. If you listen to this interview and you say, oh, great, I know how to change my life. I'm going to start making these pacts and making bets. It will fail. It will 100% fail unless you do the other three steps first. So step number one, master internal triggers. We talked about those emotions. That's the most important first step, and I show you how to do that. Step number two, making time for traction, putting in your calendar time to do what is in accordance with your values. Step number three, hacking back the external triggers, all those pings, dings, and rings. That's kind of the simple part, but super important. If you do those three things first, then the pacts will work. What most people do, if they try these pacts, even the social pacts that you talked about earlier, which are very effective, right? Entering into a pack and saying, okay, Pat, we're going to get together. We're going to sit next to each other. We're going to keep each other accountable for the next 45 minutes. Go. Very, very effective. But if you do that last, it will fail. It will break. You have to first do the other three.
So they stack. It's 1 + 1 = 3 maybe equation if you can be successful with the foundational layers. At least I would hope so.
That's right.
They become more powerful collectively, right? Sort of the unity of all the forces together.
It's like learning any new skill, right? If you want to play basketball, you have to learn how to dribble before you can dunk. So you really have to figure out how to manage your emotions. That's the most important part. You have to have those arrows in your quiver ready to go. And people gloss over this stuff because I don't want to think about my icky, sticky emotions, right? That's no fun. But I'm telling you, we have to acknowledge that distraction is an emotion regulation problem, an impulse control issue. So what I found in my research is that the most successful people who are at the top of their game, whether it's in business, the arts, sports, whatever it is, these people, they experience the same exact internal triggers. They also feel lonely and bored and stressed and anxious. They feel the same emotions that everybody else feels, sometimes even more so than the average person. The difference is that those people know what to do with those emotions. So highly successful people, they don't do what most people do. Most people, when they feel a little bit bored, a little bit anxious, a little bit stressed, they look for an escape. Give me a pill, give me a drink, give me a scroll, give me a click, give me something to take my mind off of this discomfort. Right? What highly successful people do, they don't escape the emotion with distraction. They use it as rocket fuel to propel them towards traction. And so that's really the big difference. But good news is that we can all learn how to do that.
I'm curious about, in terms of high performers, you had mentioned time for traction and calendar and putting things on there is so important. But I know a few people who use them in completely different ways, right? There are people who will literally put minute by minute what it is that they're supposed to do so that they don't have to think about it. They're not going to get distracted. And that's not my style. I prefer more time blocking, and this day is meant for this and this day is meant for that, or in between these hours. I'm curious if there's perhaps one that works better than another, or is it kind of like a diet. You kind of have to figure out the one that works for you. How do we best utilize our calendar in that way?
Absolutely. Okay. So step number 1, master internal triggers. Step number 2, as you said, is make time for traction. You have to turn your values into time, because you can't say you got distracted unless you know what you got distracted from. I'm going to say that again. This is so important. You cannot say you got distracted unless you know what you got distracted from. So if you have a big open white space calendar, what did you get distracted from? You didn't plan traction, so you can't say that you got distracted. You have to plan what you're going to do. Now, I'll tell you what doesn't work, Pat. What doesn't work is when people say, I'm going to be spontaneous, right? Whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to go with the flow just so I can, go wherever the muse takes me. That absolutely doesn't work. We know from study after study that the more freedom, the more leeway, the more unscheduled time people have, the less productive they are. Which is, of course, is an illusion, right? How many times we have a weekend and we say, oh, I've got nothing planned. I'm going to sort through the garage and I'm going to organize my bookshelf and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. None of it gets done. We need constraints. People operate best when they have some kind of constraint. And so the best constraint you can have is time blocking. Now, and a lot of people have converted to this. Mark Andreessen, the famous venture capitalist at Andreessen Horowitz, he used to have a famous article about how he doesn't plan ahead. If someone needs to see him, they need to come during the moment. And that's just how he operates. And I was so happy recently, just last year, he said that technique doesn't work at all. What does work? Time boxing. And that's exactly what I promote in my book, is planning out what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. So this is what Elon Musk does. This is what Mark Andreessen now does. If you look at the calendars of highly successful people, they don't go with the flow. They plan their day. If you look at the calendar of unsuccessful people, they don't plan their day. So what that means is you've got to plan out according to your values, right? Values are defined as attributes of the person you want to become. You have to turn your values into time. Now, whether you schedule them like I do, where I do 15-minute blocks, some people do an hour block, some people do a minute block. It doesn't actually matter what denomination you choose. The only thing that matters is that it's chosen in advance. So sometimes I'll actually schedule half a day. For example, when I'm with my daughter, we have what we call planned spontaneity. It sounds like an oxymoron, planned spontaneity. Why do I do that? I have 4 hours with my daughter where we're just going to hang out. And we don't know what we're going to do. Maybe we're going to go surfing. Maybe we're going to go to the library. Maybe we're going to go to the park. We don't know what we're going to do. But why do I plan that time? Why do I time block it? Because that tells me what I will not be doing. I will not be putzing around on my phone. I will not be taking business calls. I will not be saying, oh, honey, let me just do this one thing on my phone. No, I have scheduled that time and devoted it to somebody I love very much, because that's in accordance with my values of being an available father. So that's why it's so important to schedule that time. Is not only what you will do, but what you will not be doing. And then you can experiment it, right? You can try 15-minute increments, 20-minute increments, all-day increments. It doesn't really matter as long as it's planned in advance. Do not change it in the moment.
How far in advance are you doing that planning? Are you doing weekly planning, monthly planning? And I ask in part because, especially with, say, some of our community members trying to build businesses, they're in the early stages. They have lots of ideas. They're trying to, kind of curate their ideas, right? And the notion of going from an earlier stage of even a creative process, whether I guess it is a business endeavor or it's just even a hobby project or something, the question of that time horizon, like how far out am I trying to do that planning so that I can bring more focus to the thing and I can see a light at the end of the tunnel and I can stay committed to that endpoint, right? So I'm curious how you, in your own work, in your own life, do that.
So in my 10 years of experience and working with thousands of clients at this point, I would say about 80% of people can do this once a week. That's what I do. So almost all white collar professionals have visibility for about a week's time, right? That's about what we kind of know. All right, I wake up around this time and I tend to have lunch around that time and I, have these tasks to do in these meetings. So that's what I do. Every Sunday night, 8 p.m., it's on my calendar. I have 15 minutes where I review my schedule from the week that just passed. I look at my schedule for the week ahead and I make adjustments. Now, I would say most of my calendar stays the same, right? I tend to work out at the same time. I take meetings at the same time. I have my focused work sessions around the same time, and I'll make adjustments. Oh, you know what? This person needed to meet with me at this time, so I need to move some things around. No problem. So for me, the cadence is every week. I do it on Sunday nights. Sometimes I meet with professionals who say, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Like, I don't know until I get there. So for example, doctors give me this a lot, right? Like I need to show up and then I need to know what's going on. Then I can make my day. So the idea is that you make that schedule in advance with the amount of visibility that you have into your day, week, or month. So if you can see ahead and say, okay, I basically know where things are going to fall out for my day, then you can make it, so many people I work with, they do it first thing in the morning. Many people do it the last thing at night for the following day. I happen to, and about 80% of the people I work with, we can do it once a week.
Still using a copy-paste website? Break the template trap with Framer. Whether you're overwhelmed by traditional site builders or frustrated with cookie-cutter designs, Framer gives you the freedom to create a site that's professional, polished, and uniquely yours. Framer is the design-first, no-code website builder that lets anyone ship a production-ready site in minutes. It's free to start, allowing you to browse hundreds of pixel-perfect templates or even design something on your own on a totally blank canvas. Add bold animations like appear effects, text effects, parallax scrolling, scroll animations, looping animations, and much more in seconds. The built-in AI handles the heavy lifting, generating starter layouts, and can even translate your entire site to any language. Ready to build a site that looks hand-coded without hiring a developer? Launch your site for free at framer.com and use code SPI to get your first month of pro on the house. That's framer.com, promo code SPI. Framer.com, promo code SPI. Rules and restrictions may apply. With running your own business, legal questions always come with the territory. Like, can I use this contract or agreement? What do I do if a client doesn't pay? Am I even structured the right way for taxes? Instead of Googling your way through legal landmines, imagine having a law firm ready to address your business's legal needs without the sticker shock. That's what you get with Legal Shield's small business plans. Legal Shield helps entrepreneurs access real legal help on contract reviews, collection letters, business formation guidance, and even help navigating IRS audits. Members can schedule consultations, upload documents through the app, and get support from a provider law firm that knows small business laws in your state. Plus, consultations on taxes or trademarks help you stay ahead of potential problems. And if a client is late on a payment, Legal Shield steps in with professional collection letters so you can protect your hard-earned revenue, all for a fraction of the price of hiring a lawyer on your own. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI.
Pat, do you have any rituals? I'm kind of curious, even with your creative processes, you have a number of projects, obviously SPI, but you have the Pokemon channel, you have other things happening. So yeah, how do you even give some curation and definition to that?
Yeah, I mean, to add a little bit more color to this amazing discussion is one thing I've learned that I've needed to do is plan to plan. If I don't give myself time to then figure out the time that's going to happen later, nothing happens. So when I'm working on a new project, okay, we need a 2-hour block of time to sit down and plan this project out, right? And that has helped so much because not only just does it help me, but it helps everybody else who's involved in the thing. When I'm planning a video shoot, okay, we need to sit down to then talk about how we're going to shoot this thing. We don't just like get into it right away and put it on our calendar. We need to figure out the spacing and when this is all going to happen. And I don't know if it's a different part of the brain, but it feels like it because in some moments I need to be more creative and spontaneous, and I do block time out for that as well. But other times I have to be in planning mode to think about my future time right now. And without that space, I think it would just be a jumbled mess.
Pat, I'm not surprised that you use this technique because this is something I see in successful people that unsuccessful people don't do. And that is that they don't differentiate. I think I use different terminology, but you're already doing this. It's the difference between what we call reactive work and reflective work. Reactive work is reacting to notifications, reacting to emails, reacting to taps on the shoulder from your colleagues. Everybody in their day has to have time for reactive work. That's just the nature of work these days. The problem is that people get habituated to reactive work. Why? Because thinking is difficult. Most people do not like to think. It requires cognitive horsepower. It's much easier to say, what do I do right now? Well, let me check email. Email will tell me what to do. That gives me that nice warm glow of, I'm being productive. Even though if you're not planning time in your day for reflective work is a kind of work that can only be done without distraction. Planning, strategizing, thinking, for God's sakes, can only happen during reflective work time without distraction. So if you are not planning some time in your day to think, and that could be 30 minutes, an hour, it doesn't matter, but you have to have some time in your day for reflective work. If you're not doing that, I guarantee you're running real fast in the wrong direction.
I think I remember Ramit Sethi talking about how he reserves his Fridays specifically for that kind of planning, right? He's doing his work, he's doing his calls Monday to Thursday. 20% of the week is dedicated to literally, okay, let's strategize for the future. Let's all come together and think in a way that we just didn't have the space to do so earlier in the week. And so he's a high performer. He's doing well. I know a lot of other people who do that now too, that you've said that. So I appreciate you calling that out and giving it some structure for us.
It's kind of an untapped competitive advantage. I mean, if you look across your industry, most people ain't thinking. Right? They're not. People are not thinking. They just do. They just react. They don't reflect. But game changers take time to reflect. Now, the reason people don't do this is because they don't realize you have to plan that time ahead. So even when they do plan that time, they do it for like 5 minutes, and then they have to check email, and then they have a notification, and then and they don't have the time to properly think about the task in order to make those game-changing discoveries. So you've got to not only plan that time, but keep it sacred.
I don't know if you know this, Nir, but I have started a YouTube channel in the Pokemon space, and it's been doing really well. We're almost at a million subs. And there's been a lot of other Pokemon YouTubers who've been in the space for such a long time. And they're starting to notice how quickly we are growing. And they're just like, where did this guy come from? And you're producing all these amazing videos, and the audience is going to you. And we've been here for such a long time. Like, why aren't we getting views? And it's interesting because I just see them habitually creating the same videos every week, and it's the same thing. They're not giving themselves time to step back and go, okay, let's actually talk about what the audience wants today. The audience has changed over the last decade. And of course, me coming in new, I have a new perspective, and I do plan time with my producer to go, okay, what is trending right now? What's coming up later in the year? That's interesting. Oh, the Olympics are coming this year. Can we do anything related and around that? Okay, well, we got to start that planning now. So now we're ahead of everybody because we have given ourselves time, literally the space to come up with stuff. And like you said, and you're spot on, just a lot of us are on automatic mode because it's like, okay, one podcast a week, let's go, let's record it, let's schedule it, we're in it, and we're doing it, and we're feeling like we're getting busy work done, and maybe we're not seeing the results because we haven't given ourselves time to plan a big, bold move that can help us jump up.
Totally. And not only do we see that in the professional space, that's very relatable. Unfortunately, and here's where it gets pretty raw, we see the exact same results and deficiencies when it comes to our personal lives. How many of us give scraps of whatever's left over in our schedule to our significant others, to our kids, to our brothers and sisters, to our parents, to our best friends? We just give them whatever scraps of time are left over. And what this leads to, I mean, my mission in life here, the reason I wrote Indistractable was because I don't want to live with regret. My goal is to live the kind of life that I can look back on and say, wow, I did what I said I was going to do. Not what social media said I should do, not what the New York Times or my friends or whatever else said I should do, but I lived my life according to how I wanted to live it, to minimize regret. That's the idea, is to kind of become the kind of person that I would admire by doing what I say I'm going to do according to my values, as opposed to, letting the wind blow me this direction or that direction based on other people's interests. Because if you don't plan your day, somebody's going to plan it for you. So that's why we can apply the very same techniques that we would to our business, to our own life, to our personal life, to make sure we have that time with friends, with our family. By the way, also time for yourself. We see a lot of people ragging on different behaviors. Oh, you like to go on social media. You like to play Pokemon. You like to watch YouTube videos. Oh, that's a waste of time, right? That's ridiculous, right? We see so much negativity around how people spend their time. People are so judgy around how other people spend their time. Oh, what? You play Pokemon? That's ridiculous. What a waste of time. But, oh, I watch 4 hours of golf on TV. That's somehow okay? Ridiculous. That makes no sense. So we need to stop moralizing and medicalizing these technologies and realizing anything you want to do with your time is fine. Enjoy it without guilt, but do it according to your schedule and your values, not someone else's. So the difference between traction and distraction is one word, and that one word is intent. As Dorothy Parker said, the time you plan to waste is not wasted time. So if you put in your calendar, hey, I like to watch YouTube videos, there's nothing wrong with that. It's in my calendar. See, there it is. Now it's traction. In fact, anything else would be distraction. So it's not that I'm arguing for, this acidic life that you have to just work all day. No, no, no. I want you to plan time for the fun things in life. That's what makes life worth living. But again, have it scheduled according to your values.
I'm going to give you a second to pick up the mic you just dropped real quick.
Pretty darn good. What I find fascinating, interesting, maybe even difficult, right, to talk about publicly, and I don't know this way because we'll publish, but even privately is, at least in our industry, there is like literally the term creator now, like the identity to even, or the identity point that you brought up earlier, Nir, is now ingrained in us to just execute, to make a thing and make as much stuff as possible. There's sort of this implied idea that if we slow down to plan, if we go slower, right, that is a bad thing, that you're not hustling hard enough, you're not working fast enough. Like velocity is a big thing, right? Or at least it's implied or even externally discussed in that way.
If I'm not creating, who am I, right, Matt? It's like, so therefore I must create and create more.
Yeah, but if your primary identity, and this is something that Spicy takes and whatnot, like if creator is your primary identity, it's something that I think is somewhat of a slippery slope, if not even, a dangerous thing to the ultimate concluding thought or the end point of, oh, I just thus must always be creating, right? And, create with intent is a different thing than just like create on autopilot, right? Or at least that's my interpretation of some of this conversation and just my own work, our work together, the creating communities we're a part of. So I think it's a real thing to like consciously choose to slow down, right? And plan and dial things in and to look at the right KPIs and signals in your business or whatever it is that, you should maybe be calculating, right? And looking at to then further inform, Pat, this probably even harkens back to your example with the Pokemon stuff. You're probably looking at certain signals, right, in your analysis with your producer to further inform what you plan out and execute. But you got to slow down to do that.
The important part, I think, is it's not necessarily about the pace per se. It's about, is it in accordance with your values? So values are defined as attributes of the person you want to become. So what does that mean? It means you look at how does the person I want to become spend their time. And so I give people these 3 domains. You've got you're at the center. If you can't help yourself, you can't help other people, you can't make the world a better place. Then you've got your relationships, right? This is part of the reason we have a loneliness epidemic in the industrialized world, is that people don't make time for these close relationships, particularly with friendships, right? Friendships don't die, right? They starve to death. People who lose touch with their friends, they don't end these friendships because they got in a big fight. That's pretty rare. They end these friendships because, we haven't talked in a long time. And I guess we're still friends, but if we were friends, we would have talked a long time ago. So what happens? Now we're not friends anymore. So and that happens because we're not making time for those relationships, let alone with our kids, with our spouse, et cetera. And then finally, the work domain, which we talked about, reflective and reactive work. I think the part that's missing is the frame by which we assess how we turn our values into time. So I actually advise people not to make too many super long-term goals. Like for your example, if you're saying, my identity is to be a creator, that can be helpful, but it shouldn't be, a forever and ever type of goal. I think it's very hard for people to define their values by saying, what's important to me, right? Write down my values. Most people have a really hard time with that because we have conflicting values. I want to be an available father, but I also want to be a great business person, right? Like these are conflicting values. So the reason a time box calendar is so powerful is that it forces you to make these trade-offs given the constraints. If you want to know someone's values, you look at how they spend their time and how they spend their money. Not what they say, you look at how they spend their time and how they spend their money, right? The problem is that for most of us, we're so stingy with our money. We look for sales and coupons and deals and we split checks because we want to save a buck. But when it comes to our time, we just give it to whoever wants it. Oh, there's this stupid thing trending in the news. There's a war 5,000 miles away. Oh, let me give my time to pay attention to those things, as opposed to spending the time the way I really want to, with intent. As opposed to people who spend their money in a way that's very cheap and they count every penny. What we should be doing is being generous with our money, but stingy with our time. And why? Because we can always make more money. You can always make more money. Whether you're Bill Gates or Elon Musk, you cannot make more time. So I think we need to be stingy with our time, but generous with our money, because time is a non-renewable resource. So when we turn our values into time, when we say to ourselves, I'm just going to plan a week's time. That's it. No more, no less. I'm not thinking about 5 years from now. Certainly, I'm not thinking about a lifetime. Just this week, how would the person I want to become spend their time? Meaning, how much time would I spend taking care of myself? So if personal health is important to me, well, do I have time in my schedule for exercise? Do I have time for rest? Do I have time if I like playing video games? Is that on my schedule, right? How would the person I want to become spend their time? Time with my relationships. Is it in your calendar? And then time for work, of course, reactive work and reflective time. So having that time in advance on our schedule is the only way we can turn our values into time. And then that will change over time. So if you find, like for one season of my life, being a creator was super, super important. When I was writing my books, that was really my top priority. So I could see I had to make more time in my schedule without neglecting my other values. But then after the book was done, you know what? I wanted more daddy time. I wanted more time with my daughter. And I could adjust that week by week, as opposed to having a very calcified identity that this is the way it has to be all the time. That tends to stretch you in too many directions at once because you just can't do it all. Whereas when you put it on a calendar, you have to operate under those constraints.
I've heard a lot of other creators talk about that similarly with seasons. Like, this is my season of writing a book. So therefore, during that season, yes, it'll be, I'm going to be waking up early and sacrificing a few things to get that done. But once that's done, it's my season of
exactly
being at home all the time with the kids. It's just like you said, I've heard that and it works really well. And the idea of time being something that we shouldn't just hand out, although we do. It reminded me of this movie. I don't know if either of you have seen it, but it starred Justin Timberlake. And it's where time till death shows up on a person's arm, and it's like a ticker. It goes down, but you can exchange time with other people so that you can live a little bit longer. And it like changes your idea of like what time means when you realize that you only have so much of it to offer, and the decisions you make and the things that you do change because of that. And that's actually how it is versus, like you said, money. You can always make more money. It just doesn't feel like it, or it doesn't feel like there's an unlimited amount compared to, I don't know. It's just relationship with time and money is so important here. And I'm so glad you called that out because, I mean, we see it with our kids. They're growing up so fast. I only have 4 summers left with my son.
Crazy, right?
Before he's out. It totally changes the decisions that I make and where I spend my time. And I've had to tell myself that if I catch myself going down a TikTok rabbit hole, that is time I took away from my kids with the limited amount of time I have with them. That gets me to shut off the app and go back and play catch again or something.
Yeah, totally. And look, there's nothing wrong with some time on TikTok. The parents, we need a break too sometimes. Sometimes I say, you know what? I've had enough kid time. I need to go do something on my own for a little bit. And that's totally fine. But again, it should be planned. It shouldn't be, I can't stand this feeling that I have right now in my head. Let me go play a video game. Let me go hang out on TikTok. Rather, it should be, okay, I know that time is coming in my day. And this kind of is counterintuitive in that one of the things you can do for yourself as well as your kids, many people ask me about how do I help my kids become indistractable? And there's a whole section in the book on how to raise indistractable kids. One of the best things you can do is actually schedule the distraction. So if you're struggling with TikTok or email or YouTube or whatever it is that you find you're using for psychological relief from discomfort, in fact, putting it on your calendar, scheduling time for your kid to play that video game that you think they're addicted to, it's one of the best things you can do. Because now the brain isn't constantly thinking, when can I play? When can I play? When can I play? I know exactly when I'm going to play. It's in my calendar. It says right there. So I don't have to constantly keep ruminating about it.
Yeah, very powerful. That thinking back to a younger version of me, I will at least label myself as old, now with kids and everything else. I just wish these sorts of conversations were happening earlier. And again, I wish I had more access to that stuff 10, 15 years ago, when you're an early stage entrepreneur, you're young, you don't have some of these important other kind of constraints like a significant other, or maybe you're married, maybe you have kids yet, right? It's at least it was for me easier to justify just drifting, right? And spending more time working or hustling or things with less intent. So if anything, we're trying to like pull some of this wisdom forward to like the next generation of entrepreneurs that have the next best idea, right? But still to try to practice these disciplines and actually turn them into muscles and habits now, right? Far in advance of maybe other life events, happening down the road.
That's right. Yeah. And look, there's nothing wrong with hustling hard, right? Like if you want to go be an investment banker or build a startup, you're going to work a lot of hours, and that's fine. I'm not saying people shouldn't work like crazy. If you want to work 24/7, that's your prerogative. It's not up to me or anyone else to tell you how to live your life. What I want to help people do is to live the kind of life they want. If you say you want a certain type of life, if you know you're capable of more, but you're not doing it, that's what I want to help with. So I'm not going to tell you exercise and, here's what you need to eat. And, no, I'm not going to make any judgments. If you want to play video games all day long, great, do it. But I want to help you do it with intent, because the antidote to impulsiveness is forethought. I mean, that's really the summary of my 10 years of research. The antidote to impulsiveness is forethought. That if you wait till the last minute, right? If you're on a diet, but the chocolate cake is on the fork, you're going to eat it. If you're trying to quit smoking, but the cigarette's in your hand, you're going to smoke it. If you wake up every morning and your cell phone is next to your nightstand, right? If it's right there, you're going to pick it up before you even say hello to your loved one. So if you leave these type of decisions to the last minute, you will fail. They will get you, these distractions. But if you plan ahead, there is no distraction we can't overcome. So there's a wonderful quote. Paulo Coelho said, "A mistake repeated more than once is a decision." Such a good quote. A mistake repeated more than once is a decision. So how long are we going to complain about, social media, video games, all these things are so distracting, my email, all these things are so distracting, before we do something about it? So a distracted person keeps getting distracted. They are choosing to be distracted because they keep making the same mistakes. Whereas an indistractable person says, okay, I see what you did there, right? You got me, distraction. But I know that there's only 3 causes for every distraction: an internal trigger, an external trigger, or a planning problem. That's it. There is no other source for distraction. So an indistractable person says, okay, I'm going to take steps today to prevent getting distracted tomorrow.
That's your second or third mic drop, probably, in one episode. That's outstanding. And as these things tend to happen, it is evaporated on us. Nir, this has been just a remarkable chat. And you're continuing to write and expand upon all of this work. Where can folks go to engage on that and get the latest and greatest from you?
Absolutely. Thanks. Yeah, I'm working on my 3rd book now, so that'll be a few years ahead. But if you want to follow my writing until I get there, I publish a lot of my ideas as I'm working on my next book. And so my blog is called Nir and Far. Nir is spelled like my first name, Nir and Far.com. And my latest book is called Indistractable: How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life.
Nir, may I ask you, can you give us a little heads up on maybe the topic that you're focused on for the next publication?
Yeah, sure. It's about beliefs. It's about how our underlying beliefs affect our reality. And it's an old topic. It's probably the oldest self-help topic, but there's been a lot of research lately that's kind of overturned our understanding about the effects of beliefs. So for example, I've been going really deep into placebo research. Placebos are freaking fascinating. And there's all this interesting research that actually now, I'll give you a taste. So we used to think that in order for placebo to work, you had to not know that it was a placebo, right? So you'd go into the doctor and you'd be in some clinical trial and they'd say, okay, we don't, it's a double-blind controlled, randomized control study. So the doctor doesn't know if the pill is a placebo or not. The patient doesn't know if it's a placebo or not. And then we could see if the placebo has an effect. And we used to think that you had to be deceived in order for the placebo to work. You had to believe you were getting the real drug. Turns out that ain't true. That in studies where they tell people this is an inert substance, it has no pharmacological effect whatsoever, it is a placebo, it still works.
That's
crazy. It's crazy. It's called an open label placebo. And in fact, the placebo effect in clinical trials, like if you're a pharmaceutical company and you have a new drug, you have to prove it's more efficacious than a placebo, right? The problem is that year after year after year, drug companies are having a tougher time getting their medications approved because the placebo effect is getting stronger. The placebo effect is getting stronger in the general population, in all of us. Why? Because more people are hearing about the placebo effect. And so it's turning out that it's beyond the belief. You don't even have to believe it's the medication, that there's something hardwired in us around expectations, essentially, beliefs around how things should work that actually does change our perception. Now, not for everything. Placebos can't cure cancer. They can't cure heart disease. But turns out they have an amazing effect in Parkinson's. They have an amazing effect in insomnia, in depression, in anxiety, ADHD. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. All the things that placebos can do. So that's just kind of a taste of what I'm working on now.
Thank you for that. I cannot wait for that.
That's a fantastic trailer on what's ahead. Yeah. Excellent. Nir, thanks again so very much. And for everyone listening, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time in our next special episode of A Roundtable. We'll catch you then.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Nir. Again, you should definitely check out his books, Indistractable, Hooked, Pay attention to what he's got going on for his next stuff about beliefs, placebos. I want to know more about that, and I'm glad that we have somebody like Nir who is kind of advancing on that stuff, researching it, understanding it, and again, like I said in the intro, he's so good at taking all of this stuff and making it easy for us to not just understand how it works, but how to apply it in our own lives as well. So Nir, thank you so much. Matt, as always, thank you for joining me here on the podcast, and I hope you enjoy this one. Until the next roundtable, we have more Friday episodes, some coaching calls ahead, and of course, our amazing interviews on Wednesdays, which you'll see coming up very soon. So if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe. I look forward to serving you in the next one. We'll see you then. Cheers. Thank you so much for listening to the Smart Passive Income podcast at smartpassiveincome.com. I'm your host, Pat Flynn. Sound editing by Duncan Brown. Our senior producer is David Grabowski, and our executive producer is Matt Gartland. The Smart Passive Income podcast is a production of SPI Media and a proud member of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. Catch you next week. Have you dreamt about being your own boss, but still haven't made the first steps to making that dream a reality? Well, I get that. Starting a business can feel super overwhelming with legal forms, paperwork, finances. It's a lot. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Taylor Brands. Taylor is a complete business builder designed to make launching your business simple and stress-free. You can register your LLC in just minutes, keeping your personal assets and the business assets separate from day one. From there, you get access to everything you need to get off the ground. Legal documents, licenses and permits, invoicing and bookkeeping tools, and even a 100-day business coaching program, all designed to help you hit the ground running. You'll also get a free, personalized business plan, branding tools, and so much more. And of course, listeners of this show get an exclusive 35% discount to get started. All you have to do is head to taylorbrands.com/SPI. That's TAILORBRANDS.com/SPI. Stop dreaming, start building with Taylor Brands. I get it. You want to grow your business, but selling at scale feels overwhelming. You're drowning in complicated funnels, creating different lead magnets, or constantly posting on social media. And that gets exhausting fast, especially when you're trying to sell to hundreds or thousands of people. But what if you could sell at scale with a simple, powerful quiz? A score app quiz or assessment asks your audience key questions and gives them instant personalized results based on their answers. Your audience gets to know where they are now and shows them the steps they need to hit their goals. You can set up a quiz in minutes using Score App's templates and have a powerful lead magnet that'll do the selling for you. The best part is your audience actually wants to take this quiz, and you build huge amounts of trust before you even make a single offer. No hard sales, no chasing leads, just value at scale. Get 50% off the first 3 months using the discount code SPI. Just head to scoreapp.com/SPI. Again, that's scoreapp.com/SPI.